You don't need a sign, you need a schedule. Most people don't fail because they lack talent. They fail because they keep waiting for a feeling, waiting for the right time, waiting for life to somehow tell them, now you can start. The problem is, that moment never really comes. And while you're waiting, someone else is already working. A schedule is how you stop wasting time. It's how you make sure the important things get done every single day, not just when you feel like it. When you decide what time you start, what time you finish, and you stick to it, you take control of your results. If you live without a schedule, life will fill your time with things that don't matter. But when you live by one, you start building real progress. This video will show you exactly how to make that shift starting today. Number one, stop checking for signs and start checking your calendar. You've been taught to look for signs. A green light from the world, some magical moment that will make you sure it's time to start. You wait for motivation, for the right mood, for a feeling that says, today's the day. And in the meantime, days pass, weeks pass, months pass. The truth is, waiting for a sign is the easiest way to waste a year of your life, because signs don't run your life, your schedule does. If you want control over your results, you can't sit around waiting for the world to push you forward. You have to decide when you will move and then move, no matter what. Here's the reality. Successful people aren't looking at the sky for answers. They're looking at their calendar. They don't ask themselves, do I feel ready? They ask, what's on my schedule today? And when they see the answer, they follow through. You have to understand human nature here. The mind loves comfort. It will always create a reason to delay. It will tell you, wait until you feel more confident, or start when you have more energy, or do it when the time feels right. If you listen to that voice, you will stay exactly where you are. The discipline comes when you flip the process. You stop asking for a sign and you start asking for the next task. You stop letting your mood decide and you start letting your schedule decide. You become the kind of person who acts because the clock says it's time. Think about how much time is lost by waiting for inspiration. If you work only when you feel like it, you'll get 2 or 3 good days in a month. But if you work when your calendar says to work, you'll get 20 to 25 days of progress every month. That's the difference between staying stuck and moving forward so fast, people ask how you did it. The problem with waiting for signs is that it gives away your power. You are putting your future in the hands of chance, hoping the perfect moment will land in front of you. But there is no perfect moment. There is only the moment you choose to begin. I want you to picture something. Picture a person who keeps saying they're going to start a business when the time is right. Years pass. They see others starting, failing, adjusting, succeeding, and they're still waiting for a sign. Now picture another person who decides, I'm starting next Monday at 8 a.m. They write it on the calendar, they show up on that day, they keep showing up, even on the days they don't feel like it. Who do you think will be further ahead in a year? The reason a calendar works better than waiting for signs is simple. A calendar makes your decision for you in advance. You're not waking up wondering, should I do this today? You already decided last night, last week, or last month. Your only job is to follow through. Following a schedule also forces you to confront the truth about your habits. If your schedule says write from 6 to 8 a.m. and you skip it 3 days in a row, you can't hide from the fact that you're not committed. But when you wait for signs, you can lie to yourself forever. You can always say, the sign didn't come today. That's just procrastination in disguise. Now, here's the part that most people avoid. Discipline feels uncomfortable. At first, checking your calendar instead of your mood will feel unnatural. You'll resist it. You'll tell yourself, I'll just start later today. That's your comfort talking. And the only way to silence it is to act before it talks you out of it. When you look at your calendar, you are taking control of your time. You are deciding that your progress is not up for debate. If the schedule says it's time to work out, If it says it's time to study, you study. You don't pause to think about whether you're in the mood. You start. And here's the interesting thing. Starting creates the mood. Action builds energy. That's why people who stick to schedules seem so disciplined. It's not that they feel motivated all the time. It's that they act first and let motivation catch up later. They've trained themselves to treat their schedule like a contract they can't break. This is where you separate yourself from the crowd. The average person reacts to life. They let the day decide for them. They say things like, "I'll work on it if I have time." But you're not average. You make time. You put it in writing. You build your day before the day starts. Some people will hear this and say it's too strict. They want life to be more flexible, more spontaneous. But think about it. Flexibility without structure usually leads to chaos. You end up busy but not productive, tired but not moving forward. A schedule gives you the frame to build real progress. And don't mistake a schedule for a prison. It's not there to control you. It's there to free you from indecision. How much mental energy do you waste every day deciding whether to do the work or not? When you have a schedule, that decision is already made. You wake up, see the plan, and get to work. No debate. Here's the real challenge. Build a schedule you can actually follow. Too many people fail because they create impossible plans. They schedule 12 hours of work in one day and then feel like a failure when they can't keep up. That's not discipline. That's self-sabotage. Start with a schedule that pushes you but doesn't crush you. Add more as you grow stronger. The power of checking your calendar is that it keeps you honest. If you haven't done the work, the empty slot on the calendar is proof. You can't hide from it. It stares back at you. And that's exactly what you need. Accountability you can see. Think about how you use your phone. You check it dozens of times a day without thinking. Imagine if you checked your calendar with that same frequency. Imagine if every time you picked up your phone, you reminded yourself of what's next on your schedule. Your focus would change instantly. There's also a deep psychological benefit to working from a schedule. You stop negotiating with yourself. When you rely on signs, you are constantly in negotiation. Should I start now? Should I wait a bit longer? That mental back and forth drains your energy before you even begin. A schedule ends the negotiation before it starts. The decision is made, and you just execute. When you begin to live like this, you'll notice something powerful. Your results will no longer be tied to luck. They will be tied to your consistency. You'll be able to look at your progress and know exactly why it happened. That's not just motivating, it's empowering. You're no longer hoping for progress. You're creating it. Some days you'll wake up tired. Some days you'll feel unmotivated. That's when the schedule matters most. Those are the days that separate the ones who talk about change from the ones who live it. Because if you can follow through when you don't feel like it, you've built a discipline that nothing can shake. Remember this, motivation comes and goes, but a schedule stays. You don't need to wait for a feeling. You don't need the universe to give you a sign. You need a plan written down where you can see it and the discipline to follow it. Every day you do that, you get closer to the life you want. So stop waiting for the right mood. Stop asking for the perfect time. Pull up your calendar. Decide when you're going to do the work. And when that time comes, do it, whether you feel ready or not. Because the results you want will not come from waiting. They will come from showing up over and over until the work is done. That's how you win. Not by signs, not by luck, but by a schedule you keep every single day. Number 2, decide your daily hours like your life depends on it. Most people live with open-ended days. They wake up without a fixed plan and simply react to whatever comes their way. They start when they feel like it, stop when they feel tired, and in between, they try to fit in the important things whenever they can. The problem with that is simple. Without a clear boundary on your hours, Life will fill your time with whatever is easiest, not whatever is most important. If you want control over your future, you have to decide your daily hours with the same seriousness you'd have if your life depended on it. When you set fixed daily hours, you give your mind a clear structure. You no longer wonder when to start, when to work, when to rest. Those decisions are already made. Instead of losing energy deciding what to do next, you're using that energy to actually do it. That's a major advantage over those who drift through the day, hoping to find the time. Time isn't found, it's reserved. Deciding your daily hours also changes how you approach commitment. When you choose your work hours, you're not just scheduling tasks, you're making a promise to yourself. And if you keep breaking that promise, you see it right away in your results. That kind of self-honesty is uncomfortable, but it's necessary for real progress. You either live by the hours you set, or you admit you're letting yourself slide. Human behavior follows patterns, and when your hours are unstructured, your pattern becomes unpredictable. One day you're productive in the morning, the next day you start in the afternoon, the next day you work late at night. This inconsistency kills momentum. The body and mind work best when they know what to expect. If you start work at the same time every day, your brain learns to prepare for it. Your focus comes faster. Your energy aligns with the task. You're not fighting your own habits, you're working with them. Setting your daily hours forces you to decide what truly matters. Once your time is blocked, you see that you can't do everything. You can't say yes to every request or distraction because they now have a cost. They take away from your set hours. This forces better choices. Instead of letting the day decide. You protect the hours that build your future, and you fit everything else around them. It's important to be realistic when setting these hours. If you've been inconsistent for years, don't try to jump into a 14-hour grind overnight that will only burn you out and push you back into old habits. Start with hours you know you can keep. Make them non-negotiable. Let your discipline grow from there. The goal is not to be extreme, it's to be consistent. A consistent 6 hours beats an inconsistent 12 hours every time. When you decide your daily hours, you're also sending a message to the people around you. You're saying, this is my time for work, and I take it seriously. Over time, people learn to respect those boundaries. They stop expecting you to drop everything for them. They adjust to your structure. But that only happens if you stick to it. If you break your own hours, others will assume they're flexible and they will treat them like they don't matter. There's a psychological strength that comes from living by fixed hours. You begin to trust yourself more. You see that you can set a standard and meet it. You stop relying on willpower alone because your schedule is now part of your identity. You don't think, should I work now? You think, it's my work time. I work now. That small shift removes a huge amount of mental resistance. This discipline also impacts your rest. Many people who lack fixed hours never truly rest because they never fully work. They spend the day half working, half distracted, and when it's time to relax, they still feel guilty for not doing enough. But when your hours are set and you work fully during them, your rest time becomes guilt-free. You know you've earned it. You can switch off without the constant pressure in the back of your mind. You also stop letting emergencies take over your life. Most so-called emergencies aren't emergencies. They're other people's poor planning. When you don't have set hours, you'll drop your important work at the first sign of someone else's problem. When your hours are clear and you take them seriously, you don't automatically give them up. You handle urgent situations within reason, but you don't surrender your future to other people's lack of discipline. This way of living also helps you measure your progress more accurately. When you keep your hours consistent, you can track your output over weeks and months. You can see exactly how much work gets done in a set time, and that lets you plan better. You're no longer guessing what's possible. You have proof. You can adjust intelligently, not randomly. Most people never decide their daily hours because it feels restrictive. They think it limits their freedom. But here's the truth. Without decided hours, you are not free. You are at the mercy of every distraction, every request, every whim of the day. When your hours are decided, you gain control over the most valuable resource you have, your time. And that control is the foundation for every goal you want to achieve. It's not just about career or business either. Deciding your hours helps with health, relationships, and personal growth. If you set an hour every evening to exercise, your fitness improves. If you set aside time daily for family or personal learning, those areas grow stronger. Without those hours set in stone, you're relying on leftover time, and leftover time is usually taken by something else. When you first start living like this, you may feel resistance from yourself and from others. Your old habits will try to pull you back into flexibility. Friends and family might push against your new boundaries. But this is where you have to remember the standard you've set. If your life truly depended on these hours, you wouldn't bend them for anything casual. You would protect them with the same seriousness. The biggest shift happens when you stop treating your hours as guidelines and start treating them as rules. Guidelines can be ignored. Rules are followed. This is why you need to set them clearly. Write them down. Know exactly when your day starts, when it ends, and when the key tasks happen in between. The more specific you are, the less room there is for excuses. Eventually, your fixed hours will stop feeling forced. They will become part of you. You'll wake up knowing exactly what time your work begins and exactly when it ends. You'll feel the difference in your energy. You'll notice that your mind doesn't wander as much. You'll see results stack up faster than before because your time is no longer slipping through the cracks. And there's a deeper reward too. You'll feel proud of yourself. You'll know you've taken control of your life in a way most people never do. You'll see that by deciding your daily hours and treating them like they truly matter, you've built the kind of discipline that can carry you through any goal, no matter how big. So decide your hours today. Choose them with the seriousness of someone who knows their future depends on them. And once they're decided, live by them. Not just when it's easy, but every single day. That's how you build consistency. That's how you take control. And that's how you make sure every hour you live is moving you closer to the life you want. Number 3, keep the same sleep and wake times without exceptions. Most people underestimate how much their success depends on one simple thing: when they go to bed and when they wake up. They treat sleep and wake times like something to change depending on mood, plans, or entertainment. One night they sleep at midnight, the next at 2 in the morning, and sometimes they get up early, sometimes late. They don't realize this inconsistency is silently destroying their energy, focus, and discipline. If you want a stronger mind and a more productive life, you have to keep the same sleep and wake times without exceptions. Your body runs on rhythm. It responds best when it knows exactly when to rest and when to be alert. If your sleep and wake times keep changing, your body never fully adapts. You'll wake up feeling heavy, unfocused, and low on drive, even if you slept for hours. But when you stick to the same times every day, your body learns when to power down and when to turn on. You get up feeling ready instead of dragging yourself through the first hours of the day. Keeping the same sleep and wake times isn't just about physical energy. It's about self-respect. It's about showing yourself that you control your habits instead of letting random situations control you. When you say you'll wake up at a certain time and you do it every single day, you build trust in yourself. That trust carries into everything else you do. It also strengthens your discipline in a way nothing else can. Waking up at the same time, even when you don't feel like it, trains your mind to do what's needed instead of what's comfortable. And doing what's needed consistently is the foundation for any real achievement. The person who can get out of bed on time every day is the person who can show up for their goals no matter what. One of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking weekends are a time to break the pattern. They sleep late on Saturday, wake late on Sunday, and then wonder why Monday feels like a fight. When you change your sleep schedule, even for 2 days, you throw off your body's rhythm. You'll spend the first part of the week trying to get back on track instead of starting strong. The most successful people avoid this completely. They keep their times the same every single day of the week. This is also about mental clarity. A consistent wake time means you know exactly how much time you have before the day's work starts. There's no guessing, no rushing, no scrambling. Your mind begins to anticipate the routine. You can focus on what matters because the start of your day is predictable. The more predictable your start, the more powerful your actions during the day become. People often ask, what's the best time to wake up? The answer is less important than the consistency. Whether it's 5 a.m. or 7 a.m., the key is that it's the same every day. Your body values rhythm over random bursts of effort. If you keep changing your wake time, it's like constantly changing the start time of a race. You'll never run at your best pace. To make this work, you also have to protect your bedtime. Most people set a morning alarm, but no evening rule. They push their bedtime later for a movie, a conversation, or scrolling on their phone. The problem is, a late bedtime almost always leads to a late wake time, or a tired morning if you force yourself up. Either way, your performance suffers. You need an evening cutoff point where you stop all stimulating activity and prepare to sleep. That cutoff should be part of your daily discipline, not something you decide at the last minute. Technology is one of the biggest threats to a consistent sleep schedule. If you let your phone, TV, or computer decide when you stop for the day, you'll end up losing hours without noticing. That's why you must set a non-negotiable time to disconnect. Once that time hits, you stop consuming and start preparing to sleep. This small action can add years to your energy and productivity. When you keep the same sleep and wake times, you also gain more control over your mornings. You stop rushing out the door, skipping breakfast, or starting your day stressed. Instead, you create a morning rhythm that sets the tone for everything else. You can use that time to plan, exercise, or work on something important before the world interrupts you. But this is only possible if your wake time is fixed and your body is rested enough to get up without a fight. There will be days when you don't want to follow the schedule. You'll be tempted to sleep in after a late night. You'll tell yourself it's okay just this once. But every time you break the rule, you make it easier to break it again. The strength comes from holding the line, even when it's uncomfortable. You don't make exceptions. You keep the same times because that's the standard you live by. This habit also gives you more mental discipline in other areas. If you can control the most basic part of your day, when you wake up, you can control how you eat, how you work, and how you spend your time. It's a foundational discipline. Get this right, and many other parts of your life will fall into place. Some people think they can catch up on sleep later. They sleep poorly during the week and then oversleep on weekends. But sleep doesn't work like a bank where you can store extra hours. You can't undo the damage of inconsistency. The only way to truly restore your energy is to make your rest predictable. That means the same bedtime and the same wake time every single day. The first week of change is always the hardest. Your body will resist. You might feel tired in the beginning because you're resetting your rhythm. But after a short adjustment period, your body will adapt, and waking up will start to feel natural. You'll notice you don't need as much caffeine. You'll be sharper in the morning. You'll finish tasks faster because your mind is clear. Keeping the same sleep and wake times also helps with emotional stability. A tired mind is more reactive, more impatient, and more easily discouraged. When you're well rested, you think more clearly, you make better decisions, and you handle stress without breaking down. This is why consistent sleep isn't just a productivity tool, it's a foundation for a balanced, controlled life. You have to remember, discipline is built in the small daily choices. Going to bed at the same time isn't exciting. Waking up at the same time doesn't feel like a big victory. But over months and years, those choices stack up into a level of control and focus that most people will never have. And that's what gives you the edge. So make it non-negotiable. Decide your bedtime. Live by it without exceptions. Protect it from distractions, temptations, and other people's demands. Let your body and mind get used to that rhythm and watch how much more powerful, steady, and focused you become. Every day will start with energy instead of fatigue. Every day will start on your terms. And that is how you take control of your life at the very first hour of the day. Number 4, put hard tasks first on your schedule every single day. Most people make the mistake of starting their day with what's easiest. They open their phone, answer a few messages, scroll through news or social media, and then slowly move toward the more demanding work. By the time they get to the tasks that truly matter, their energy is lower, their focus is weaker, and distractions have already taken over. If you want to make real progress every day, you have to reverse that order. You have to put the hardest tasks first on your schedule before anything else. The reason this works is because your mental energy is highest at the beginning of the day. When you wake up and get going, your mind is fresh, your willpower is at its strongest, and your focus hasn't yet been drained by small interruptions. This is the time to attack the work that requires the most effort, the most thinking, and the most discipline. If you leave it for later, you're asking yourself to climb a steep hill with tired legs. There's also a psychological advantage to starting with hard work. When you finish something challenging early in the day, you build momentum. You create a sense of accomplishment that carries into everything else. Even if the rest of the day throws problems at you, you already know you've handled the most demanding thing on your list. That gives you confidence and control over the rest of your time. Putting hard tasks first also keeps them from hanging over you. If you delay them, they sit in the back of your mind like a weight, draining your attention even when you're doing something else. You might be answering emails or doing smaller jobs, but part of your brain is stuck thinking about the big thing you haven't started. That mental pressure builds stress, which makes starting even harder. Doing it first removes the weight and frees your mind to focus on the rest of your day. Some people avoid hard tasks because they're uncomfortable. They think starting small will warm them up. But what usually happens is that the small tasks expand to fill all the available time. You look up, and half the day is gone. The tough work is still untouched. And now you have less time and less energy to deal with it. The solution is simple but requires discipline. Start with the hardest thing before anything else can get in the way. It's not just about work. This approach applies to every area of life. If you know your body needs exercise, do it early. If you have a difficult conversation you've been avoiding, make the call first thing. If there's a decision that's been sitting unresolved, tackle it before you open yourself to new input. The same principle works everywhere. Do the demanding things when you have the most strength to do them. To make this habit stick, you have to be clear about what your hardest tasks actually are. Vague goals don't work. You need to define exactly what needs to be done. So when the day starts, there's no debate, no hesitation, just action. Write it down the night before. When you wake up, it should be the first thing you see on your schedule. That clarity removes the temptation to fill the morning with easier distractions. One of the reasons this habit is so effective is that it forces you to face resistance directly. The human mind loves to avoid discomfort. If you give it the chance, it will push the difficult work later and later, hoping it somehow disappears. But when you start your day by going straight at the hardest thing, you train yourself to be comfortable with discomfort. That skill transfers to everything else in life. Once you're used to facing the big challenges first, smaller problems lose their power over you. You also get better results when you put hard tasks first, because you're giving them your best thinking hours. Even if you're naturally more alert later in the day, your early hours are still the least interrupted. You haven't been pulled into meetings, random calls, or urgent requests. You have a clean block of time that you can dedicate fully to something important. Guarding that time is one of the most valuable things you can do for your productivity. Another benefit is that this habit forces you to prioritize properly. When you ask yourself, What is the hardest thing I need to do today? You're also asking, what will have the biggest impact? Often the hardest tasks are the ones that move you forward the most. They might not be urgent, but they are important. By starting with them, you make sure your day is driven by priorities, not by whatever happens to demand your attention. The challenge is sticking with this when life gets busy. It's easy to slip back into starting with what's easy. That's why you need to make it a rule, not an option. If the day starts, the hard thing gets done first, no matter how tempting it is to delay it. Over time, this becomes automatic. You stop even questioning it. You sit down, you open the work, and you begin. It's also important to protect the time you dedicate to hard tasks. That means no checking messages, no answering calls, and no sudden changes. You have to treat this time like it's locked away from the rest of the world. If someone tries to interrupt, they wait. If something urgent comes up, it gets handled after you finish. This is your time to do what matters most, and nothing else comes before. If you struggle to start, break the task into a small, clear first step. Often the hardest part is just beginning. Once you start, momentum takes over. The key is to eliminate the decision-making process. Don't spend the morning negotiating with yourself about when to begin. The task is first. The start time is fixed. The only choice you have is to get moving. Once you make this a consistent habit, you'll notice a difference in your results. Your biggest goals will move forward faster. Your stress will go down because you're not carrying the weight of unfinished big tasks all day. And your confidence will grow because you know you can handle what's most demanding before anything else. Putting hard tasks first is a discipline, but it's also a mindset. It's about saying, I decide the order of my day. I give my best energy to what matters most. I'm not letting fear, comfort, or procrastination dictate my priorities. That's the kind of thinking that separates high achievers from everyone else. When you start the day with what's most challenging, you set a tone of strength and focus. You tell yourself and the world that you lead with action, not avoidance. And if you do that every single day, you won't just be productive. You'll build a reputation with yourself as someone who gets things done, no matter how difficult they are. And that reputation will carry you further than any shortcut ever could. Number 5, treat your schedule like a promise you cannot break. When you write something on your schedule, you're making a commitment. It's not just an idea. It's not just a plan you'll try to follow. It's a direct agreement with yourself that says this will be done at this time. The problem for most people is that they treat their schedule like a suggestion instead of a contract. They adjust it based on mood. They skip things when it's inconvenient, and they move tasks around when something easier comes up. That habit destroys discipline, and it teaches your mind that your own word doesn't matter. If you want to be truly dependable, you have to start with yourself. The relationship you have with your own commitments sets the tone for everything else in your life. When you keep the promises you make to yourself, you build trust in your ability to follow through. When you break them, you weaken that trust. And over time, you stop believing yourself when you say you'll do something. That's why treating your schedule like a promise you cannot break is so powerful. It protects that trust. Think about the promises you make to others. If you tell someone you'll meet them at 8 a.m., you show up at 8 a.m. You don't call them halfway there and say, I didn't feel like leaving the house yet. Yet people do exactly that to themselves all the time. They put a workout on the schedule and skip it. They set time for deep work and push it aside. They act as if breaking an appointment with themselves is different from breaking one with someone else. But the truth is, it's worse, because you're teaching yourself that your own priorities don't matter. This is why you have to reframe your schedule as non-negotiable. If it's on there, it gets done. Just like you'd show up for a meeting with your most important client. The minute you give yourself permission to ignore your own schedule, you open the door to excuses. And excuses grow quickly. Miss one task and the next one is easier to skip. By the end of the week, you've kept more promises to other people than you have to yourself. And that's a dangerous pattern. Keeping your schedule sacred is also about respect for time. Every slot on that schedule represents a block of your life you'll never get back. When you choose to waste it, you're not just moving a task, you're throwing away an opportunity to build progress. It's easy to forget that time is limited when you're in the moment, but a schedule is a way to protect. You're saying, this time is for this purpose, and I will not give it away for something less important. Of course, life will bring interruptions. Emergencies will happen. But most schedule breaking isn't caused by true emergencies. It's caused by distractions, laziness, or poor plan. You check your phone, someone calls you, or you feel tired and decide to push the task to later. Those moments are the real test of commitment. The strongest people keep their schedule, even when it's inconvenient, even when it would be easier to give in. That's how you build reliability that lasts a lifetime. There's a hidden benefit to treating your schedule like an unbreakable promise. You stop overbooking yourself. When you know you have to honor every commitment, you start thinking carefully about what you put on the calendar. You stop filling it with tasks you know you won't follow through on. You become more realistic, more strategic, and more focused. Every block of time has a purpose you fully intend to fulfill. This habit also makes you more trustworthy to others. People learn that when you say you'll do something, you mean it. You don't cancel at the last minute. You don't forget because you were busy with something else. You deliver because you're already trained to deliver for yourself. That kind of consistency builds a reputation that opens doors. Treating your schedule as a promise also reduces stress. A lot of daily anxiety comes from uncertainty. Wondering what you should be doing, juggling too many tasks in your head, or worrying about falling behind. When you have a schedule you respect, those questions disappear. You know what to do, when to do it, and how long it will take. You can focus fully because the decision has already been made. The discipline to stick to your schedule isn't built overnight. It starts with small wins. If you write start work at 9 a.m. on your calendar, you start at 9 exactly, not 9:05. If you block 1 hour for studying, you don't cut it short because you got bored. The more you follow through, the more automatic it becomes. Soon you stop negotiating with yourself altogether. You simply do what the schedule says. The challenge is staying consistent when nobody is watching. It's easy to keep promises to yourself when there's an audience, but the real strength is built in the moments when you could skip it and nobody would know. That's when you decide whether your standards are just for show or for real. If you can honor your own schedule in private, you can trust yourself in public. This approach also forces you to confront your own excuses. Every time you consider breaking the schedule, you have to ask, is this reason good enough to break a promise? Most of the time, the answer is no. Feeling tired isn't good enough. Not feeling motivated isn't good enough. Wanting to do something more fun isn't good enough. If the task is on your calendar, it means you decided it was important. That decision should not change because of a temporary feeling. Some people resist this idea because they think it's too rigid. They want flexibility. But flexibility without discipline often leads to chaos. There's nothing wrong with adjusting your schedule when it truly makes sense. But those changes should be rare, deliberate, and justified, not made on impulse. When you treat your schedule as a serious commitment, you'll find that you actually gain more freedom because you're in control of your time instead of constantly reacting to it. Over time, this standard becomes part of your identity. You stop thinking of yourself as someone who tries to stick to a schedule and start thinking of yourself as someone who always keeps their word. That shift changes how you approach every area of life. You stop overpromising. You start delivering more. You stop talking about what you'll do someday and start getting it done on the exact day you planned. The biggest change you'll notice is in your result. When you treat every scheduled task like a promise you cannot break, your days start stacking into weeks of consistent effort, and weeks stack into months of measurable progress. You won't need to hope for success. It will become the natural result of your habit. The person who follows through day after day will always outperform the person who works only when it's easy. So make the decision now. Every time you write something on your schedule, see it as a personal agreement that cannot be broken. Protect it from distractions, excuses, and temptation. Show up for it exactly the way you would show up for the most important person in your life. The way you treat your schedule is the way you treat your own future. If you want that future to be strong, dependable, and successful, then start proving today that your word to yourself is worth everything. Number 6, plan your week so clearly that no free gap confuses you. Most people enter the week with only a rough idea of what they need to do. They know a few deadlines, they remember a couple of meetings, And the rest they try to figure out as they go. That's why so many people end up wasting hours, bouncing from one task to another, and still feeling like they didn't accomplish much. The problem isn't a lack of effort. It's a lack of clarity. If you want to make progress without constant stress and wasted time, you have to plan your week so clearly that no free gap confuses you. When you have open, unplanned time, the mind naturally drifts. You think, what should I do next? And instead of answering quickly, you wander into distractions. A 5-minute pause becomes 30 minutes of scrolling, chatting, or reacting to other people's agendas. Before you know it, the day's momentum is gone. But if your week is planned in detail, there's never a question about what's next. You see the clock, you see the task, and you move into it without hesitation. A clear weekly plan gives you control over your time in a way most people never experience. Instead of reacting to whatever comes up, you're directing your own schedule. Every hour has a purpose, whether it's work, rest, exercise, or learning. There's no aimless waiting, no wondering how to fill the time. That structure turns an ordinary week into a productive one. The process starts before the week begins. You sit down with a calendar and map out exactly what matters most for the next 7 days. You don't just list tasks, you assign them to specific time. You decide which days are for deep work, which blocks are for meetings, and when you'll take care of personal responsibilities. You even plan recovery periods so you don't burn out. By the time you're done, the week feels like a sequence of clear actions, not a vague pile of intention. This level of planning does something important for your focus. It eliminates decision fatigue. One of the biggest drains on productivity is constantly deciding what to do next. When your week is already laid out, those decisions are made in advance. You can put all your mental energy into doing the work instead of figuring out which work to do. That alone can double your efficiency. It also prevents the trap of underestimating how long things will take. When you see your tasks mapped out across the week, you quickly notice if you've overloaded yourself. You can spread work evenly instead of stacking too much on one day and ending up overwhelmed. You can also spot gaps that might otherwise turn into wasted time and fill them with smaller but still meaningful actions. Some people resist detailed planning because they want freedom, but unplanned time rarely turns into meaningful freedom. It turns into reacting to whatever demands your attention. True freedom comes from knowing that the important things are already scheduled and protected. That way, when you do have free time, you can enjoy it fully without guilt or uncertainty. When you plan your week this clearly, you also protect yourself from other people's chaos. Without a plan, it's easy for someone else's urgency to take over your day. But when you have a full intentional schedule, you can say no more confidently. You're not rejecting them out of laziness. You're protecting time you've already committed to something important. Another benefit is the mental clarity you get from seeing the whole week in front of you. You stop feeling like you're behind all the time because you know exactly when each task will be done. That sense of control reduces stress, improves focus, and keeps you from making rash decisions just to relieve pressure. To make this work, you have to be specific. Writing work on project in a time block isn't enough. Write exactly which part of the project you'll handle. Instead of exercise, write the exact workout. Instead of read, decide which book or topic. Specificity kills hesitation. When you know exactly what you're about to do, you start faster and finish stronger. You also need to include small but necessary actions in your plan. If you leave them unassigned, they'll sneak into your productive hours and slow you down. Tasks like paying bills, answering personal emails, or tidying up should have their own place in the schedule so they don't interfere with your higher priority work. The first time you plan a week this clearly, you might feel like it's too rigid. You might think you're boxing yourself in, but after a couple of weeks, you'll see that you actually feel lighter. The stress of what should I be doing right now disappears. You stop juggling dozens of loose thoughts in your head. You just follow the plan, step by step, and the results build naturally. The real challenge is sticking to the plan when unexpected things happen. And they will happen. The point of planning this clearly isn't to control every minute of life. It's to make sure you have a strong baseline. If something urgent forces you to adjust, you can shift tasks without losing sight of the bigger picture. The rest of your week is still intact and you can recover quickly. Another shift you'll notice is that your downtime becomes more valuable. When you plan with precision, you see how much time you truly have for rest and recreation. Instead of mindlessly filling every spare moment, you choose how to spend it. This makes leisure more intentional and satisfying because you're not trying to cram it in around chaos. You've made room for it. Planning your week in this way also helps you identify patterns. After a few weeks, you'll see where you tend to underestimate time, where you overload yourself, and where you leave too much open space. You can adjust and improve, making each new week more efficient than the last. Over time, you'll develop a rhythm that makes productivity feel natural instead of forced. There's also a confidence that comes from living by a clear plan. You stop feeling like you're constantly chasing after time. You know that your priorities are being handled, and you see steady progress, week after week. That confidence changes how you carry yourself, how you make decisions, and how you approach challenges. The truth is, most people waste far more time than they realize. Not in huge chunks, but in tiny, aimless gaps scattered throughout the week. Those gaps add up to hours, days, even weeks of lost progress. Every year, a clear weekly plan erases those gaps. Every time you look at the clock, you know exactly what to do. There's no room for confusion, no space for drifting. When you start living like this, people will notice. They'll wonder how you seem to get so much done without looking stressed or overwhelmed. The answer will be simple. You've removed the wasted space. You've made your week clear enough that you never have to guess. And once you've experienced that level of control, you won't want to go back to drifting through the days hoping you'll get it all done. Planning your week so clearly that no free gap confuses you isn't about being busy. It's about being deliberate. It's about making sure your time is used in a way that serves your goals instead of slipping through your fingers. The more precise you are, the less you'll waste, and the faster you'll reach the life you're working for. Every hour has a place, every day has a purpose, and your week moves forward without the dead space that slows everyone else down. Number 7. Schedule breaks so you never burn out or drift off. Working hard is essential, but there's a mistake many driven people make. They push without stopping until their mind and body are drained. They think they're being productive, but as their energy drops, so does their quality of work. They make more mistakes, their focus slips, and simple tasks take twice as long. That's why scheduling breaks is not a sign of weakness. It's a strategy to stay sharp, avoid burnout, and keep your performance consistent. When you plan your breaks, you take control of your energy instead of waiting until exhaustion forces you to stop. A lot of people don't think about breaks until they're already worn out. They work until they can't focus anymore, and then they collapse into distraction, scrolling, wandering, or simply staring at the wall. That's not rest. That's recovery from overwork. True rest is proactive. You step away before your energy is gone, so you can come back with full focus. By scheduling your breaks, you make sure you recharge before your productivity crashes. Your brain works best in cycles of effort and recovery. Just like a muscle, it needs short periods to reset in order to keep working at a high level. When you push through without these moments, you're not showing discipline. You're working against your own biology. A short, planned pause is far more powerful than a long, unplanned slump. The pause is intentional, controlled, and timed, so it fuels your next block of work, instead of pulling you away from it. Scheduling breaks also prevents the slow mental drift that happens when you've been working for too long without rest. You've probably experienced it. You're in the middle of something, but your mind starts wandering to unrelated thoughts. You're still sitting at your desk, but you're not truly working. This drift wastes time and drains focus without giving you any of the benefits of real rest. Planned breaks solve that by creating clear boundaries. You work fully during work time, and you rest fully during break time. The key is to treat breaks with the same importance as your work blocks. They're not random. They're not whenever you feel like it. They're set in advance, just like meetings or deadlines. This keeps you from slipping into the bad habit of taking breaks too often or too long, which can kill your momentum. A scheduled break is there to serve your productivity, not replace it. It's important to choose the right kind of break. A good break refreshes you, not drains you further. Scrolling on your phone for 20 minutes might feel like rest, but it fills your mind with noise and doesn't actually recharge you. Stepping away from screens, moving your body, hydrating, or even sitting quietly with no stimulation are far more effective. You want to give your brain space to reset, not flood it with more input. Another advantage of planned breaks is that they give you something to look forward to. When you know a short rest is coming, it's easier to push hard during a work block because you're not working into an endless stretch of effort. There's a finish line, even if it's just a few minutes away. That psychological boost helps you give your full attention to the task at hand without feeling like you have to pace yourself all day. You also protect your health by scheduling breaks. Sitting for hours without moving is bad for your body, your posture, and your circulation. Long term, it can lead to serious issues. Even a 5-minute walk every hour can prevent stiffness and keep your energy stable. The same goes for your eyes. Looking away from screens regularly helps prevent fatigue and strain, making it easier to work longer without discomfort. Some people fear that taking breaks will slow them down, but the opposite is true. Short, well-timed pauses make the rest of your work faster and more accurate. Your brain processes information more effectively when it's given moments to breathe. You'll notice you return to your tasks with fresh ideas, better problem-solving ability, and more patience. Without breaks, frustration builds, and even simple tasks can feel overwhelming. To make this habit work, you need to experiment with timing. Some people find that 50 minutes of work, followed by a 10-minute break, works well. Others prefer 90 minutes of deep work, followed by 15 minutes of rest. The exact numbers matter less than the consistency. The point is to have a rhythm you stick to, so your body and mind know when to push and when to recover. You also need to protect your breaks from turning into distractions that pull you away from the rest of the day. This is why setting a clear end time is essential. If you take a 10-minute break, you return exactly when those 10 minutes are over, not when you feel ready. This reinforces discipline and keeps your schedule on track. Planned breaks also make it easier to say no to interruption. When someone asks for your time in the middle of a work block, you can tell them you'll be available during your break. This way, you're not constantly breaking focus to deal with small requests. But you're also not shutting people out completely. You're controlling when you give attention to other things. Over time, this approach changes the way you work. You stop associating productivity with constant strain and start associating it with balance. You become more intentional with your energy. Instead of starting strong and fading as the day goes on, you work in focused bursts, recover, and then repeat at the same high level. By the end of the day, you've done more than you used to, and you're not exhausted. There's also an emotional benefit. Burnout doesn't just come from overwork. It comes from the feeling that there's never an end in sight. By scheduling breaks, you give yourself regular points of relief. That lowers stress, keeps your mood stable, and helps you enjoy your work instead of resenting it. The real strength of this habit is that it's sustainable. Anyone can push themselves hard for a week or two, but without breaks, they crash. With a balance of effort and recovery, you can keep going for months and years without losing speed. That's how long-term success is built. Not in short bursts of intensity, but in consistent, steady performance over time. So you don't wait for exhaustion to tell you when to stop. You decide in advance when you'll pause, and you follow through. You protect those breaks, just like you protect your work blocks. You use them to recover, not to distract yourself. You return from them ready to focus, not dragging your feet. That's how you keep moving forward, without hitting the wall. When you start working this way, you'll realize it's not about working less. It's about working better. You get more done in less total time, because every block of effort is supported by real recovery. You're sharper, faster, and more consistent. And instead of ending the day feeling drained, you finish with enough energy to enjoy the rest of your life. That's the real purpose of scheduling breaks, to make sure your productivity doesn't come at the cost of your health, your focus, or your enjoyment of life. Work hard when it's time to work, rest when it's time to rest. Keep that balance, and you'll not only avoid burnout, you'll build a pace you can keep for as long as you want to win. Number 8. Write your to-do list in exact time slots daily. Most people make a to-do list as a collection of tasks they hope to get done in a day. They write them down in no particular order, and then they work on them whenever they feel like it. The problem with this approach is simple. It leaves too much room for delay and distraction. Without clear time slots, you can spend hours on something that should take minutes. Push important work until it's too late. Or fill your day with low-value activities just because they're easy. If you want to take full control of your time, you have to write your to-do list in exact time slots every single day. When you assign time to each task, you turn vague intentions into concrete commitments. You're no longer saying, I'll do this at some point today. You're saying, I'll do this from 10 a.m. to 10:45 a.m. That small shift changes everything. It forces you to be realistic about how long things take. It removes the guesswork from your day. It tells your brain exactly when to start and when to finish. And when the clock hits that time, you start, not when you feel like it. Time-slotted lists also help you see the truth about your workload. When you actually block tasks into your day, you quickly realize if you've been overloading yourself or wasting hours. You can't fool yourself into thinking you'll fit it all in when the hours on the calendar are already full. This awareness forces you to prioritize. You put the most important work first, and you fit the rest where it actually belongs instead of hoping you'll magically find the time. This method also creates urgency. If you know you only have 45 minutes for a task, you work with focus. You're less likely to drift into distractions or drag things out. The deadline is built into your day, not some vague point in the future. You're working against the clock in a healthy way, pushing yourself to stay on track without rushing carelessly. Another benefit is that exact time slots keep you from spending the whole day on one big project while neglecting everything else. It's easy to get stuck on a single task when there's no set end time. But when you've scheduled it from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. and then something else at 11:15, you have to move forward. This prevents perfectionism from eating up your whole day and keeps your progress balanced across multiple areas. It's important to plan your to-do list the night before or early in the morning before you start working. If you wait until the middle of the day to assign time slots, you've already lost precious hours, and you're more likely to make rushed decisions. Planning ahead gives you a clear map before the day even begins. You wake up knowing exactly what happens and when. Specificity is what makes this work. Don't just write work on marketing plan. Write work on marketing plan 2. Write exercise 7 hours and 7:45 a.m. That precision makes it harder to push things off because moving them requires rearranging your whole day. Without time slots, it's too easy to tell yourself you'll get to it later, which usually means it doesn't get done at all. The discipline comes from actually starting and finishing according to the schedule. If you begin a task late, you either shorten it or push something else, which teaches you the cost of being late. If you finish early, you can use the extra time for review, preparation, or catching up on something else. Either way, you're staying intentional instead of letting the day drift. This approach also helps you handle interruptions. If someone asks for your time, you can see exactly where they fit in without destroying your day. You know when you're free and when you're not. You can say yes without overcommitting or no without feeling guilty, because your day is already planned with purpose. One of the most overlooked benefits of assigning time slots is how it reduces mental fatigue. Without a set plan, you spend the day making constant small decisions about what to do next. That drains energy you could use for actual work. When every task already has its place, those decisions are made in advance. You simply follow the schedule. That keeps your mental energy for doing, not deciding. It also makes it easier to measure your performance. At the end of the day, you can look back at your list and see exactly what was done on time and what wasn't. This gives you honest feedback on your habits, your speed, and your discipline. You can see where you underestimated time, where you let distractions in, and where you worked with precision. Over weeks and months, this feedback makes your scheduling sharper and more accurate. If you've never worked this way, the first few days might feel strict. You might even feel pressure when you see the clock moving. But that's exactly the point. You're becoming aware of how you use your time instead of letting it slip away unnoticed. After a short adjustment period, this system will feel freeing, because you'll realize you're getting more done in less total time. To make it work, you have to be honest with yourself about how long things really take. Many people underestimate and end up rushing or running behind. It's better to slightly overestimate at first, so you build the habit of finishing without stress. Once you get used to it, you can tighten your estimates and push for greater efficiency. You also need to protect the integrity of your time slots. If you let other things spill into them, the system falls apart. That means you don't take calls, answer messages, or handle unrelated tasks during a scheduled block. If it's writing time, you write. If it's meeting time, you meet. You respect the schedule the way you would if it belonged to someone else who's paying you for that time. Over time, this habit creates a rhythm in your days. You start each morning with certainty instead of chaos. You know what's next before you even finish what you're doing. You move through the day with focus and without the constant question of what next. That rhythm compounds into steady progress. And steady progress is what produces real results. There's also a psychological shift that happens when you live by exact time slots. You stop treating your day as a loose collection of hours and start treating it as valuable territory that must be managed carefully. You become more protective of it. You stop wasting it on low-value distractions because you see every block as an opportunity that either moves you forward or sets you back. The real power of this system is that it forces alignment between your priorities and your action. It's easy to say something is important and then spend all day on other things. But when you put it in a time slot, you're proving it matters by giving it space in your actual day. That's where progress comes from. Matching what you say you value with how you actually spend your time. When you start writing your to-do list in exact time slots daily, you eliminate the wasted space, the indecision, and the slow drift that kills productivity. You stop leaving your results to chance. You start each day with intention. You work with focus, and you end with the satisfaction of knowing exactly where your time went. That level of clarity is rare, but once you have it, you'll never want to go back to guessing your way through the day. Number 9. Protect your schedule from other people's random demands. One of the fastest ways to lose control of your time is to let other people's random demands dictate your day. It starts with one quick request, then a sudden phone call, then an unexpected favor. Before you know it, the work you planned for yourself is pushed aside, and your day is spent handling things that were never on your schedule. If this happens often, it's not just bad luck, it's a lack of boundaries. Protecting your schedule from other people's random demands is not selfish, it's essential if you want to stay on track and actually finish what matters to you. The truth is, most of these interruptions are not true emergency. They feel urgent to the person bringing them to you, but they rarely have the same importance for your life and goals. If you don't decide what gets your time, other people will. The more available you make yourself for every sudden request, the more people will assume you have no problem rearranging your priorities for theirs. The first step is to understand that saying no is not disrespect. It's respect for your own commitment. You can't expect to reach your goals if you treat them as optional. Every time you drop what you're doing to handle someone else's random need, you send a message to yourself that your schedule can be broken without consequence. Over time, this creates a habit where you're always reactive and rarely proactive. You have to set the expectation that your time is structured. That doesn't mean you become cold or unhelpful. It means you decide when you are available and when you are not. If someone calls you in the middle of a planned work block, you can tell them you'll get back to them at a set time. If a colleague drops by with something quick, you can let them know you're in the middle of something important and we'll look at it later. This isn't being difficult, it's showing discipline. Protecting your schedule also means being clear about what qualifies as worth breaking it for. There are rare situations where something is so important that it needs immediate attention. But those should be the exception, not the rule. When everything becomes an emergency, nothing truly important gets done. You have to train the people around you and yourself to recognize the difference between urgent and simply unexpected. Many people struggle with this because they don't want to disappoint others. They think refusing a request will damage relationships. But in reality, when you constantly give in, you teach others to undervalue your time. Respect grows when people see you take your schedule seriously. They start to plan their requests more carefully and approach you at the right time. One way to make this easier is to create clear windows in your day when you are open to requests, questions, or assistance. This gives people access without letting them disrupt your deep work. It also trains them to save non-urgent matters for those windows instead of interrupting you whenever they think of something. The more predictable your availability is, the less random your day becomes. It's also worth looking at how you might be inviting interruptions without realizing it. If you check messages constantly, people learn they can get a response from you right away. If you leave your door open or keep your phone nearby at all times, you're signaling availability. Sometimes protecting your schedule is as simple as closing the door, silencing notifications, or letting calls go to voicemail until the right time. You also have to protect yourself from the temptation to say yes out of habit. Many requests sound harmless when they're small, but added together they eat huge chunks of your day. Before agreeing, ask yourself whether it's aligned with your priorities for the day. If it's not, you either schedule it for later or let it go entirely. This discipline feels uncomfortable at first, but it becomes easier as you see how much more you get done. Another danger is the guilt that comes when you put your own work first. If you've been taught to always help others before helping yourself, you might feel selfish for protecting your time. But you can't give your best to anyone else if you're constantly running behind on your own responsibilities. When you keep your schedule intact, you actually have more capacity to help in meaningful ways because you're not drained or scattered. Over time, you'll notice that the more you protect your schedule, the less random demands you get in the first place. People will adapt to the boundaries you set. They'll start coming to you at the right times, or they'll solve problems on their own because they know you're not instantly available to take them on. That shift alone can give you back hours each week. Protecting your schedule doesn't just improve productivity. It also protects your mental focus. Every interruption forces you to switch attention, and it takes time to get back into a deep work state. Too many switches in a day can leave you feeling mentally exhausted without having achieved anything significant. By minimizing random demands, you give yourself longer stretches of uninterrupted time, which leads to higher quality work and faster results. You also gain a greater sense of control. Instead of feeling like the day is happening to you, you're directing it. You finish what you planned instead of ending the day, frustrated that you didn't get to your most important work. That consistency builds confidence, because you know you can count on yourself to follow through. This doesn't mean you become inflexible. Life will always have genuine surprises that need immediate attention, and you should be able to handle them. But you handle them as rare exceptions, not as a constant pattern. The difference is that you choose when to adjust, instead of letting others make that choice for you. To live this way, you have to see your schedule as more than just a list of tasks. It's a representation of your values. The things you put in it are the things you've decided matter most. Letting random demands replace them is the same as letting someone else rewrite your priorities. If you wouldn't let a stranger rearrange your home without asking, you shouldn't let anyone rearrange your day without your permission. It's not always easy to enforce this, especially if you've built a reputation for being available at all times. At first, people may push back or be surprised when you say no, but if you stay consistent, the pushback will fade. You'll be seen as someone who manages time well, stays focused, and gets things done. That reputation is worth far more than the approval you get from saying yes to every request. When you protect your schedule from other people's random demands, you create space for the work that truly matters. You make progress you can measure. You reduce stress and mental clutter, and you start to live your days with intention instead of reaction. That's how you turn a scattered life into a focused one, by deciding your time is valuable and refusing to give it away without reason. Number 10. Make following your schedule your top non-negotiable rule. Most people treat their schedule as something flexible, something they can change whenever they feel tired, distracted, or simply not in the mood. That's why they never build real momentum. If you want to achieve anything big, you have to set one clear standard for yourself. Following your schedule is the top non-negotiable rule. That means if it's written down, you do it. No debates, no excuses, no moving it to later, unless there is an unavoidable, legitimate reason. Once you make this the foundation of your life, you take away the daily battle between intention and action. The power of making your schedule non-negotiable is that it removes the decision process. Too often, people waste energy in self-negotiation. Should I start now or wait a bit? Should I skip today and make it up tomorrow? Every one of those little conversations with yourself chips away at your discipline. But when you make the rule that you follow your schedule exactly as planned, you eliminate those discussions entirely. You act because it's time, not because you feel like it. This standard also forces you to be more deliberate when building your schedule. If you know you must follow it no matter what, you'll think carefully before adding anything to it. You won't overload it with unrealistic tasks or commitment. You'll prioritize the things that truly matter because you've committed to doing them without fail. The more you keep that promise, the more your trust in yourself grows. And self-trust is the real currency of success. When your schedule becomes a non-negotiable rule, You stop relying on motivation. Motivation is inconsistent. It can be strong one day and gone the next. If your productivity depends on motivation, your results will always be unpredictable. Discipline built on a strict schedule is different. It works whether you're motivated or not. It's like showing up for a job. Whether you feel like it or not, you're there and you get the work done. The first challenge with this mindset is breaking the habit of making exceptions for small reasons. Skipping a scheduled task because you don't feel ready or because something else came up might seem harmless, but it erodes the standard you're trying to set. The moment you prove to yourself that your rules are flexible, they lose their strength. You start finding more reasons to adjust or delay, and before long, your schedule means nothing. That's why the commitment has to be all in. If it's on the calendar, it happens. There will be times when you're tired, distracted, or stressed. That's when this rule matters most. Anyone can follow their schedule on a perfect day. The real test is sticking to it on the difficult days. That's where the long-term transformation happens. When you execute the plan in spite of discomfort, you build a level of mental toughness that makes everything else easy. The more you do this, the less you'll even think about skipping, because it simply won't be an option you consider. Following your schedule without negotiation also prevents the dangerous habit of catching up later. On paper, it sounds harmless. You skip today and double up tomorrow. But in reality, doubling up rarely happens. And when it does, the quality suffers. You can't always make up lost time. And even when you can, you lose the rhythm and consistency that produce results. Sticking to the schedule every day avoids that entire problem. This approach changes the way you handle outside interference. When someone tries to pull you away from what's on your calendar, you don't hesitate to say no or push it to another time. You don't need to invent an excuse. You simply explain that you have a commitment at that hour. That commitment might be to yourself, but it's just as important as any meeting with another person. Over time, people start to respect your time more because you clearly respect it yourself. The benefits go beyond productivity. Making your schedule non-negotiable strengthens your identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through, someone whose word, even to themselves, is unbreakable. That identity carries over into everything else you do. You'll set higher standards in your work, your health, and your relationships, because you're used to keeping commitment. To make this habit stick, you need to plan in a way that is challenging, but realistic. If your schedule is too easy, you won't grow. If it's impossible, you'll constantly fail and lose confidence. The balance is to push yourself to your limits without setting yourself up for defeat. And as you build consistency, you can gradually increase the demands on your schedule. Another key is to treat the start and end times in your schedule as fixed. If a task is set for 8 hours, those small delays might seem meaningless, but they train you to see your schedule as flexible. And that's the exact mindset you're trying to avoid. Precision builds discipline. When the clock hits the start time, when it hits the end, you transition to the next block, whether you feel finished or not. There will be moments when unexpected situations genuinely require you to adjust. The difference between a disciplined person and everyone else is that the disciplined person treats these as rare exceptions, not daily occurrences. When a change is necessary, they reschedule the task immediately rather than leaving it open-ended. That way, nothing slips through the cracks. The psychological shift that comes from making your schedule non-negotiable is enormous. You stop viewing your time as something that can be casually rearranged, and you start treating it as a valuable asset to be used with intention. That alone will put you ahead of the majority of people who live in constant reaction mode, bouncing between tasks and obligations with no real control. When you live by this rule, you stop experiencing the frustration of ending the day with a half-finished list and vague excuses for why things didn't get done. You'll have a clear sense of accomplishment because you executed the plan exactly as designed. That clarity builds momentum, and momentum turns into long-term success. Over weeks and months, the impact compounds. You'll notice that you're not only getting more done, but you're doing it with less mental strain. You're no longer carrying the weight of unfinished tasks in your head. You're no longer wasting time on deciding what to do next. You're simply moving from one planned action to the next, and the results are stacking up in ways you can measure. This is the discipline most people avoid because it feels strict. But what they don't realize is that strictness in execution creates freedom in life. When you know your important work is always done, you can truly relax during your downtime. You don't carry guilt into your evenings or weekends. You can enjoy your time off because you've earned it by keeping your most important rule. So you draw the line. You decide that your schedule isn't a suggestion. It's a contract with yourself. You keep it whether you're motivated or not, whether the day is easy or difficult. You stop making excuses. You stop pushing things off. And you stop letting feelings decide your actions. From that point on, the habit of following through becomes part of who you are. And when you live like that, there's very little you can't accomplish. So here's the truth. Your future won't be built by waiting for the right sign. It will be built by the schedule you follow every single day. Every hour you plan and stick to is an investment in the life you want. No more drifting. No more hoping something pushes you forward. You decide the time, you do the work, and you protect it like it matters, because it does. If you take one thing from this video, let it be this. The people who win are not the ones who wait for signs. They're the ones who show up on schedule. Starting today, commit to it. And if you're ready to go deeper into building discipline and creating real results, watch the next video. It will take what you learned today and push you even further. Your time is here. Your schedule is the sign. Now follow it.